Let me ask you something. What if your first real estate deal was an accident and it turned into a $6 million portfolio? What if you didn't need big banks, didn't need perfect timing, and didn't even need a ton of your own money to get started? And what if the niche everyone's ignoring right now is quietly producing consistent cash flow month after month? Well, today's guest is proof of all that. My fellow Coaching Inc. mastermind member, Bree Hartman, she didn't set out to build a self storage empire. She started with one accidental rental and turned it into over 100,000 square feet and a $6 million plus portfolio. She's cracked the code on finding off market, mom and pop storage facilities, structuring seller financing deals that actually get accepted, and creating true win win outcomes in markets where most investors overlook. And get this, she's done it while raising nearly $500,000 in private money and building a life where she's fully present with her daughter. Now, if you're a real estate investor, especially if you've got a W 2 job and you've been wondering how to get your first deal, cash flowing deal without risking everything, this episode is going to show you exactly what's possible. I'm Jay Conner, the Private Money Authority, and this is Raising Private Money. We're going to meet my guest and friend Bree right after this.
If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Conner.
Bree, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. This is awesome.
Yes, I'm excited to have you. Well, Bree, let's go ahead and dive in. You went from one accidental rental. I got to hear the story on what made that accidental. One accidental rental to a $6 million self-storage portfolio. Here's my first question. What did you figure out early that most real estate investors completely miss?
Yes, I for that question, I'm like, gosh, I would say the deal hunting. My quick story is I was a W-2 employee, just like a lot of people. I worked for the state for Fish and Wildlife in California for 7 years and just knew, I was like, I'm meant for more. And so I actually went back to school, got my nutritionist degree, and from there opened up a gym. Where I learned all the lessons the hard way, solopreneur, do it the wrong way, which I called it my busy business. And then when I got pregnant, it was kind of like, hey, like what else is out there? So I always say like an accidental rental where I rented my house. I bought a primary house and I rented out the first house I ever owned. And I was like, this is going to be it. Like, this is the vehicle. And then I learned there was like toilets, service dogs, and like $7,000 of baseboard damage. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. I don't want to do another busy job. Right. So that was when I listened to a podcast just like this. And like I heard, no toilets, no tenants, no employees, less problems, like self-storage. And I'm like, that's my asset class. So that's how I jumped in. Was really like the joke in the family was I was 10 weeks pregnant, went to a conference in Las Vegas, learned about storage, came back, and I'm like, I'm going to find one. Like, is the baby going to come first, or is the storage facility going to come first? So that really was the start of this. And it took me about nine months to find that deal, which our first deal was in Louisiana, like out of all the places. And so I got really good at deal hunting and talking to owners, building relationships. And that was really, I think, what, stood out was, I think also being female, one of the only females in storage, but doing it in a different way, doing empathy, long-term relationships, and then building partnerships that do really last. So that's how I kind of got into self-storage.
That's an amazing story, Bree. So when you got into the self-storage, what were some of those early lessons or mistakes that you learned as you were starting out?
Oh my gosh, so many. The mistakes. I guess the mistakes is when you're underwriting a deal, it's like how do you underwrite a deal like correctly, and how do you take down a deal that is a million or $3 million. Like our first property was $3 million. So just had like one more zero from residential. Like my first house was like 305,000. And so learning how to partner, right? Like I didn't come from money. So I actually met two other partners at a conference, and we really like complemented each other, like different skill sets. And we're like, hey, let's go get an SBA loan. So we got a small business association loan where you only have to put 10% down. And then we divided that between three people in that partnership for that deal. And so that was, I would say, one of the biggest lessons is that I think your mind does tricks on you, where it's like, can I, this person who's pregnant and, who owned a gym, can I buy a storage facility? And I think that is one of the biggest limiting beliefs, is that two things actually, is that it takes a lot of money. You have to own a lot of money to buy a storage facility. And number two, it's also about like, can I buy one and can I operate it right from, across the country remotely? So those are the two biggest things I think I had to jump over from a hurdle standpoint, to actually make it happen and say yes to that deal.
Now, you mentioned in your origin story that you had two other partners. And
Mhm.
so there were three of you on that first deal. You all divided the down payment,
Yeah.
that 10%. What advice would you give from your experience about what to do and what not to do when it comes to having a partner in your deal?
Yes. Yeah. So this was, I think just as a partnership, we took about a good like 2 months to really walk through with an attorney, like the operating agreement. And so I think we did it in a great way because we are still partners to this day. We buy more facilities with each other. And I always say that, I have my partners back and they have mine, and we all know what happens, right? So we talked about, death, divorce, if someone goes bankrupt. And we talked about, hey, in 5 years, if someone does not do their duties, what happens? And I think these are the hard conversations that a lot of people don't think about or don't have before you come into a real, commercial partnership that it's going to last 5 to 10 years. And same thing with a real relationship, like you're married, right, to that partnership, and your business is only going to do as well as you do as a team. So it's actually, I think a lot of people, it's very interesting. Some people are like, I do not like to partner, and other people are like, I do like to partner. And I would say I'm kind of in the middle of that spectrum. I always say explore a good partnership that makes sense. And normally in self storage or commercial real estate, you're looking at, who brings the deal. Number two is like, who's going to bring the money? And then number three is who's going to operate it. And then number four, who's going to take the risk. So if you look at a full commercial real estate deal, self-storage or anything else, you have to look at all four of those departments and then see how can you divide and conquer and make that deal happen, together, and do it well, right? So I think that's kind of I think people don't think about that from a long-term perspective.
Well, that's some great advice right there. What year did you do this very first self storage deal?
This year, gosh, 2021. Um,
Okay.
and so, I'm definitely newer. I would say like on the block. And but I always like to say, my mom's like, you are not an average learner. And so I don't take no, for an answer. And I think learning, it's really like, how do you do purposeful learning? And then how do you ask good questions and then go out and apply it? Because all these people can learn, like years. I've talked to so many people that, I've definitely am ahead of 10 spaces above them. And they just have ruminated in analysis paralysis on, I need to learn everything, versus I was taught just like, hey, go put spaghetti on a wall and then go find the people to surround yourselves and ask those good questions. Like insert yourself and then go bet on yourself, because why not? Right? You got one life. And it was just very, I think, very interesting. I was on the playground with my little girl just at a park, local park, and someone's like, wow, you're doing self-storage and all these things in your kiddo. And she's like, what's one thing that, you wish your younger self, heard? And I said, I wish I heard, just go bet on yourself more. Like go cause big problems and go find people to ask those questions to, and then bet on yourself, because if you're not going to do it, that other person next door is going to do it too. So I just think that was that's something I have to remind myself in, because I'm in the trenches. I say this with my students. I'm actively buying storage facilities, negotiating deals with them. I'm still cold calling and doing hot conversations with self storage owners, and then operating. And so my goal, in the next like 4 or 5 years, is to own another 15 to 20 facilities, and to operate them all remotely and have a little bit more time freedom. But I'm in the trenches, like I said. Like I call them, I'm young and I'm hungry and I'm ready to go. So yeah, it's exciting right now.
It sounds exciting. Now, one thing you talk about in your working with students, and one thing you're known for, is you talk about the storage freedom formula. The storage freedom formula. What is it? What is the formula? And how are people actually running profitable storage businesses from home?
Yes, I love it. So I would say the storage, freedom formula is really thought about in operations, right? Because a lot of people are like, Bree, how are you like remotely managing, 2 facilities in Louisiana, some in Carolinas, one in Tennessee, and then we just bought one with a student in Texas. And so it gets to be easy when you put in the right systems. And so how we look at operations, and I'll show you this is kind of like the 3-part framework, is you get to choose, right? So how you structure the deal matters, and how you're going to cash flow it. And then also, how you look at it from an underwriting perspective. So you can either, the 3 parts to this framework is, number 1, you can do it all yourself, which we have a firefighter that bought 2 facilities, and he does it all from, his phone. And I asked him, I was like, hey, how much time does this take you? And he's like, Bree, 3 to 5 hours a week, like tops. So you can do it yourself by taking the calls and also like looking at all the leases and collecting the money. Or the third one, the second one, which we mostly do a lot more teaching of, is called a hybrid method. And so this is where you have, it might be out of state, but you have someone who call it a boots on the ground. And so they're the ones that are actively doing like the lock checks, the auctions, the making sure the facility is nice and clean. And then the other part is a call center. So we have a call center that students use, and it's trained to, their storage facility. So they can sell well, right? And then this person is the boots on the ground who makes it and upkeeps it. So that's the hybrid model, the second model. And then the third model, if you get a facility that's normally over 35,000 square feet, a little bit on the larger side, you can have a third party. And so we have a couple of these facilities that we have a third party, but we have to manage the third party. You can't just be an absentee owner, because self-storage is a backed business, and then it's commercial real estate. So from all these 3 different parts of frameworks, you get to have an easier lifestyle. And so I just wanted to share with you this component. And then the third thing, the question that you asked me is like, cool, Bree, like, how does this really work? And so, I'm here, Sacramento, California. I love working from home because I get more time with my daughter. And so how this works is, all our facilities are remotely managed from another state. And so we have the hybrid model, which is we have a call center and we have a boots on the ground for each facility. And so with that, say a tenant finds our website, normally within like a 10-mile radius from their home. They go on Google Maps, they go to the website. I want to rent a 10 by 10 unit. They pay, $158 for that unit. As soon as they make that payment, it asks you on your phone, take a picture of your driver's license, back and front, sign the lease, which is a month-to-month lease. And then once that is executed, a workflow happens where they get an instant custom gate code to their phone, a text and an email. And then they also get a customized digital lock code. And so they pull up to the gate, put their code in, come, to their unit, put that lock code in, take our lock off, put their stuff in, move it all in, and then they put their own lock on, drop our lock off, where they get $50 charge. And we have QR codes around the whole entire premise. And so no one has to be there. Like, we still have good customer service, but really no one's twiddling their thumbs in the office, because we already rented that office out for $1,000 a month, which gave us I think it was like $65,000 of equity by just filling that office up with another business. So it gets to be easy, so these are the systems that you put in place, but you still have to monitor, right? Like, how many ins and outs, how's the insulation doing? There's a couple other things that we do as operators, but you don't have to be there, which is the best part.
It really does sound like, at least geographically, it can be a hands-off operation. But as far as managing of course,
Mhm.
it's still hands on. You can't set it and forget it. But
Absolutely.
that's a brilliant idea, taking over a storage facility that's already got an office in place, but you don't need
Mhm.
the office. You can turn that into cash flow, just
Exactly.
like you've got the individual storage units being rented
And
out.
and I wanna point out this is a lot of people don't think about it, but, because I love that storage. It is a sexy business in the sense it's boring. And we have 8 different revenue streams. Like, people don't think about we've got climate controlled, we got drive up, that's non-climate controlled. We have RV and boat inside and outside. We put there on our first facility, 68, RV and boat, just drive up units right away within the first 8 weeks. We have a cell tower that gives us money monthly. And then we also, what else? We do tenant protection plans, which is tenant insurance. And so everyone needs to either show us their, tenant home or renter tenant insurance, or they have to purchase ours automatically for $12, right? And so that's an upsell. Think about that over 200 or 400 units, right? Like, that's a very large piece of that pie. And there's a lot of other things that you can upsell, like each month, dynamic pricing, things as demand. Like, we just hit 95%. I was so funny. I'm like mad about this. And I'm like, our prices are too cheap. We need to be raising our prices. We should only be at like 80, 88% occupied with our climate control, because we have to have product, right? We have to have product, and our market is showing that ours is too cheap because ours are filling up too fast. So, there's a lot of different pieces that you can manage, but the goal with this is to constantly, add your revenue every single month, every single year, so that your NOI goes up, which means your purchase price goes up. So right now, this facility is worth $4.7 million. And this was about where are we at now? Oh my gosh, like 4 years, 5 years ago. And so we increased our prices by 67% from when we purchased it. And that's just that one facility. But I just wanted to share with you, how a facility can really change your life when you're creative, when you can see revenue in a different position, right? Instead of just a boring business that people need, every single month to make sure that they're living and moving and doing all the right things process. So
Right.
I don't know if that was helpful. I went
Of
deep,
course.
but
Yeah.
it's to me, it is exciting. Like, I'm like, how do you make lemonade out of lemons, which is a literally, you guys, storage is we rent space. It's a cinder block building, roll up doors, and no toilets and no lights, like we rent space, which is really kind of neat to kind of even think about on a subscription based business.
I love it. A lot of real estate investors chase deals in the multiple listing service, or even if they're on commercial, they'll, do business with brokers, but you do things different. What are, say, your top 3 ways that you're finding off market storage deals that really other people are missing out on, or they're just not seeing those opportunities that you
Yeah.
and your students are?
Yeah, so there's so many different creative ways, but I'm a big component of creating your own list. So off-market deals, and so we teach this in the self storage school. But it's like, how do you create your own off-market list from Google My Business? And we have people look at these markets, and we're like, hey, we're going to go on Google My Business, and we're going to look at all the storage facilities, and we're going to scrape them, right? Find the facility number, and then we're going to actually take it one step further, open up the Secretary of State or White Pages or a couple other resources, and find that storage owner's cell phone number, and then their phone number, their email address, and then maybe a social media account. And so we're by able to create this, we challenge our students to call, it's 25 people every single week, right? For 4 weeks. So that's 100 calls. And so that's how we're getting right now, or even like owners to raise their hand. And it's a very simple conversation. Like, I think people, like, I cold call for 2 hours just so my students can watch me, because this is the number one thing that people don't want to do. I'm like, I challenge you to call 100 storage owners, and if you did this and had someone to raise their hand, you get $1 million, right? Most people, when they hear this, would be like, oh, I'll do it. And then they don't. You're right. And so we had a student do this, and they just bought, it's a smaller deal, but really cool how this was structured. He got an owner to raise their hand just by calling. And he was able to purchase a 10,000 square foot facility in Texas on seller financing. He only had to put 10% down, $9,000 down. And so what this is so cool about this is that he added revenue in a beautiful way. So $9,000 down on this 10,000 square foot property that he did. And he added, I think it was 70% when he bought it. He's now at 85% filled. The second strategy he did is he added 4 billboards, which is $400 a month that they pay him to advertise on, his property. And then he added 3 U-Haul, and they do a split revenue between a U-Haul truck that's parked out and people can rent it. And so very, very interesting. This facility will be worth in 24, 36 months, if he's a slower operator, it'll be worth about $315,000 from $9,000 that he put down. And so at that point in time, in 3 years, you can do 2 things, right? You can refinance, take 150 out and go do it again and don't kill the pig, right? Keep that storage facility. Or number 2, you can sell it, $315,000 at an 8.5 cap. And you can go 1031 to go buy something bigger. And that's how you snowball and create net worth, is by thinking about these different processes and improving and adding that value to create your lemonade. And then you don't pay Uncle Sam, you're going to go 1031 to go get something bigger, hopefully at $1 million, so that you can then add more value and more cash flow, to that property. So just wanted to give you an example of, and it really showed me and excited me. I was like, hey, he's like, Bree, you taught me this. I'm like, yeah, I did, hands down. So, right now we're excited to see, we've been seeing more acquisitions we've seen in the past 4 months than we've seen in 18 months. So I think people are on the sidelines right now, which is interesting because they're not quite sure what to do. And these baby boomers, just say it how it is, are nervous. And they're like, hey, I want to retire. I've been waiting for 5 years. And why not do it now? And I can get seller financing, right? I can get monthly mailbox money sent to my, my home without having to be a storage operator. So that's the problem that my students fix, is being that person that says, hey, I'll pay you money and I'll operate your facility 10x better in the community.
Wow, that is fantastic. Now, I don't know about elsewhere, but I can tell you right here in Eastern North Carolina in the last couple of years, I've never seen so many self-storage buildings being built. And it's like it's exploded around here. And I'm thinking a lot of people might be thinking, Bree, I'm too late. I'm too late to get in on this. So tell it to them straight, Bree. Is it too late to get into self-storage right now?
Absolutely not. So I'm going to bust this myth, because a lot of people, they live in larger MSAs, so metropolitan areas, like Raleigh, North Carolina, or a couple other areas, or Charlotte. And public storage, CubeSmart, what else? Life Storage. Those are all REITs. Those are big players that come in, and those are all the ones that are big. They're building all these buildings. They're building multi-story buildings, which I think is ridiculous. No one wants to go up in an elevator versus just pull up to their, your unit at this point. But what I like to do and how I specialize, and I think it's different, is we're not competing with them, right? Like, we're going to 3rd or 4th tier markets, which means that we're looking at markets that have a population of 3,000 people all the way up to 150,000. And that's it, right? So, I mean, there's obviously gray areas, but that's a beautiful thing. And then we cold call, we reach out to these owners, because REITs, they're like, oh, those are too small. Well, they're too small now. In 5 to 7 years, this is going to be the areas where development and data centers are going in, right? And so people always need storage. And the reason for this is making sure that the market isn't oversupplied, because yes, you're right. In some of these other big markets that grew really fast, lots of storage came in, lots of construction loans that were built at 3% happened. And then guess what? We're buying these facilities now because they were dentists or contractors that didn't even look at the supply and demand or feasibility of that area, and they can't fill it up, right? And so it is an interesting part to this, is that the people that are looking on these outskirts are going to be the ones to get these still value add facilities that have not been milked or juiced or purchased yet, and then sell them to these REITs that then are going to come in 5 to 7 years later. And so I wanted to show people this, because I get kind of sassy on it, but people always need storage. We call it the 4Ds. And so the biggest part that people use self-storage is number one is moving, right? So when people buy homes, it also helps storage. But death, sadly, I know it's like a sad part, but it's true. And death, with family members, you put things into estates and then you can put it into storage. Number two, we have it's like death, divorce, and then decluttering. And then the other one is disaster, like natural disasters. So in bad times, people use storage, and then downsizing, right? Like my mom, very much retired, and she's like, Bree, my word of 2026 is downsizing, downsizing. I'm downsizing to make things simple. And that's exactly what baby boomers are doing. They're selling their homes, they're giving them to their kids, and then they're downsizing. And the same thing is going to be happening right now. We see it. The price of oil is going up. Businesses are cutting fat, and people are going to be downsizing, right? And we get to utilize that in self-storage for our advantages. And then the second component is that we have a lot of business to business. The library rents out 8 climate-controlled units for their very important documents. We've got other businesses like pharmaceutical reps that also use our storage facilities. We've got contractors that put a lot of their marble, right, into our storage. You see Facebook Market. Lots of people who are doing these trades and side businesses use our storage facilities. So I just wanted to give you guys a perspective of, there is myths of that. And I say, continue to listen to those people. Well, I want to be the wolf that goes the other way and makes a lot of money, right? In a good way, so that you can double down and look at these advantages. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Well, Bree, you've helped students close deals, these self-storage deals, with little to no money and make hundreds of thousands of dollars. What separates your students from who actually pull it off from the ones that stay stuck?
Yes. So I see a big differentiation right here is, we love action takers, and that's what we very much attract. But what I think is very different than a lot of other, businesses that help, people buy these facilities is that we do have an accelerated 6-week program that we teach the self-storage foundations. So we get them really good in 6 weeks to underwriting deals, looking at supply and demand, and then putting in offers, right? And keeping all the other, BS and fluff out of it. And then by week 6, you're submitting your first offer, right? And then that is the most important. You can't actually get access to our off-market pipeline until you submit your first offer and you get feedback, right? And so urgency, I think, really creates helpful understanding instead of just being someone who is, I would say there's a, learning. Passive is learning. Learning is passive. It's fun. It's really something that we're comfortable with as, people in the education that went through schooling in the US. Taking action is uncomfortable. And so we really push rewards into, getting out there and taking action. And that is why I think our students buy a lot of the first facilities 10 times faster than a lot of programs out there, is because we really push that in the sense of putting good offers in, but still put an offer in. Even if, the broker's like, it's worth 1.5 and that's what he put it as, and it's really worth 1.2, put that offer out, because I bet you in 4 months, he's going to come back to you and say, hey, I got lots of lowball offers and I like you because you followed up with me for 4 months and I want to take your offer. So that happens very regularly right now, is the people aren't following up and building that relationship over time, even when they submitted the offer. So, but I will leave you. I loved this saying because I heard it from someone who was a mentor, and they said, an owner can't say yes to something that they don't, to an offer that they can't physically have in their hands. So let me say it one more time. An owner can't say yes to an offer that they do not have physically in their hands. And that is something that is so important. And what I stress to my storage, students is that you need to be taking shots. You need to be taking shots, and don't feel like you're lowballing. Tell them what it's like. Tell them what it's really worth and why you think its value is X, so that they can then go educate the seller and maybe come back to you and get a yes. So that really changed my perspective when I first got into storage. And then ever since I heard that, I'm like, I want to submit some offers. Like, let's take some shots, because that's what it's all about, is consistency over time will help you become a millionaire, right? And it's very true.
Well, I'm so glad you're emphasizing make offers, because you know what? I never bought any real estate that I didn't make an offer on. And another thing that I have learned over the years is that a seller of a property really, no matter what they say, they really don't know what offer they're going to accept until it's in their hand. I don't know how many times, of course, Carol Joy, my wife, and I, we've had the same acquisitionist for decades, over 20 years. And my acquisitionist, of course, I'm in single family, you're in self-storage. And the seller of that property will say, I'm not taking a penny less than X. And then I make the offer and justify the offer through my acquisition. And it's just amazing how many times they will end up accepting the offer, saying they would not take less than whatever. And another thing that changes too is time and circumstances. I mean, that offer that you make today that is denied and rejected today might be accepted in a month or two or three for sure.
I have a really good just example. We just had a student close near like Flint, Texas. And this deal was an off-market property, and they had been in contract at $1.8 million. And it fell out of contract at the very, very end. And so this owner is sad, as it was like his wife had cancer. He was trying to sell his facility so that they could pay for her chemo and her process and just really just enjoy life, like go to Hawaii and do some really good things with the rest of their time together. And we came, saying like, hey, this facility is really worth 1.5 and we can close, and here's the proof. And we walked him through, that process and that deal, and met them, shook their hands, and they said, hey, we'll do this deal. They wanted 1.6, and we were able to kind of be like, hey, this is really what it's worth and where we see it at. And this is why we would be the best, the best operator and the best owner for this deal. So it's just very interesting. It's not always about price, but it's also about, can you close and do what you say you're going to do, which is core values. And then number three, it's being able to operate it well, right? And come in and not retrade, because that is time. Time is money. Speed kills deals, and it's very true. So we're able to close on this property at 1.5 million. And, from that situation. And so never not submit an offer, because you just want to make sure that you can share why you're the best person to be picked. And that this is the part in our market right now that I think is missing, is people are like, I can do fast offers and cash and all these things. Cool. No one cares about that anymore. Back in the day they did. It's like, no, how can you show up? How do you say what you're going to do? And then how can you close and be the best person to inherit that asset?
Yes. Well, Bree, what's the best way for our audience to reach out to you and learn about how they could explore being a student of yours and learn about self-storage?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're owner of the self-storage school. And so this is our 12-month program where we really help people like find, buy, put offers, and operate their first storage facility. And so our cohort actually is open right now. And so you can, if you're interested in joining, you can send me just the word school to 916-579-7209. And then also I wanted to, give like your listeners, because a lot of big questions is like, how do I find a good deal? And then how do I underwrite it? So we have a really awesome like storage offer calculator that you can use. And I train my VAs and everyone really fast, do a really quick back of the napkin. So if you also want that, I'll give you the link below, but just send me if you want to send me a message, just my business phone, and just say calculator, I'll send you that bundle as well. So that's something that's important to take a look at, because, it's, is this owner realistic, or are they out of this world? And that's what's important to get started, is understanding what that even looks like and what is that threshold.
And let's give out that phone number one more time, Bree.
Yep. So it's 916 579 7209.
And again, what's that? What do they need to do? What do they text?
Just send me the word either school if you're interested in learning a little bit more, or just send me the word calc or calculator, and just tell me where you found us just on the podcast. And then I'll send that out to you. And it's actually a really awesome bundle. And I wanted to share that with just your guys, so that you can look at deals and understand them and just get started, because that's the whole point.
That is great. Bree, thank you so much for offering those tools to use. And of course, that phone number, it'll be down in the show notes as well, along with the instructions. Bree, thank you so much for joining me here on Raising Private Money.
This is awesome. Thank you so much.
You got it. Well, there you have it. From one accidental rental to a $6 million self-storage portfolio. Bree just showed you what's possible when you stop overcomplicating this business. And what did she say? Start taking action. So here's my question to you. Who do you know right now that needs to hear this? Who is stuck? Who's overthinking? Who's waiting for the perfect time when this episode just proved you don't need perfect, you just need to start and start taking action? Do them a favor. Take just 10 seconds right now, share this episode with them, text it to them, email it to them, post it on your social media, because here's the truth. The more you teach what you're learning, the faster you grow. And listen, if you got value from this episode, make sure you subscribed, leave me a review, and let me know what hit you today and made a difference. I'm Jay Conner, the Private Money Authority. This is Raising Private Money, and I'll see you right here on the next episode.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jconner.com/moneyguide. That's jconner.com/moneyguide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jconner.com/moneyguide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with Jay Conner.